Something happened today that they were not prepared for. Not a disaster. Not a confrontation. Nothing that would make the evening news or show up in any record anyone keeps. Something quieter than that and far more significant. Something shifted in the invisible structure of things. A weight that had been pressing down on a specific part of your life for longer than you can clearly remember lifted, not completely, not with fanfare, but perceptibly, in the way that pressure lifts when the thing that was generating it finally understands that it is not going to work, that you are not going to break in the direction it needed you to break, that you have remained, through everything it threw at the situation, entirely and inconveniently yourself. They felt that this morning before you did. That is the strange thing about this day and why it matters more than it might look like from where you are standing. The people in your life who have been made uncomfortable by what you carry, who have been unconsciously, and sometimes very consciously, working to introduce enough doubt and friction and delay that you might eventually become manageable, they woke up today with a feeling they could not name, a particular unease. The specific anxiety of someone who has been applying pressure to something and has just realized, not through any dramatic event but through a quiet internal knowing, that the pressure is not doing what pressure is supposed to do. You are still full. That is the thing that is scaring them. After everything, after all of it, you are still full. The fullness is the thing they cannot account for. It is not arrogance, you know the difference and so do they, which is part of what makes it so disorienting for them. Arrogance is empty in a specific way that everyone can feel eventually. Arrogance is the performance of fullness by someone who is actually running on a deficit, who needs the performance to paper over the hollow place where the real thing is supposed to be. Arrogance is recognizable, manageable, even useful to the people around it because arrogance is a vulnerability dressed as strength, and vulnerabilities can be found and pressed. What you carry is not arrogance. What you carry is the actual thing, the settled, quiet, self-sustaining completeness of a person who has found their center and lives from it consistently, the thing that does not need approval to stay intact. The thing that does not expand when praised or contract when criticized because it is not dependent on either of those things for its reality. The thing that simply is, continuously, without requiring the world to confirm it. That is what they are scared of, not your confidence in the performance sense, your completeness in the reality sense, the fact that you walk into rooms already full. Which means there is nothing they can offer you that will make you more and nothing they can withhold that will make you less. And this removes from them the primary lever that most people use to navigate relationships with other people. The lever of need. The lever of wanting. The lever of the particular hunger that most people carry and that makes them, at some level, manageable by whoever controls access to what they are hungry for. You are not hungry in that way. You have not been for a long time. And this is today's important revelation, not just that they are scared, but why they are scared, and what that fear tells you about where you actually stand. Think about what it means to move through a world that runs on hunger. The entire structure of how most social environments operate is built on the assumption that people want things they don't have: status, approval, connection, love they haven't been given. And the people who accumulate power within those environments do so, largely by positioning themselves as providers of what other people are hungry for. Find the hunger. Become the supplier. Maintain the hunger at the exact level that keeps the person returning. This is the mechanism, whether anyone involved would name it that way or not. And then there is you, walking into those systems full, no hunger for them to locate. No deficit for them to become the answer to. This is not something the system knows how to process. Because fullness in a room built on hunger exposes the hunger. Your completeness creates a contrast everyone can feel even when nobody can name it. The person living from genuine stability and the person performing it look different at the level of presence, in whether they need the room to go a certain way, in whether they are braced against outcomes or simply open to them. You live from it, they perform it, and the difference is visible to them even when they cannot articulate what they are seeing, which is exactly what creates the fear. You have watched people become uncomfortable in your presence without being able to understand why. You have been in conversations that shifted in a strange direction at the moment when you were most simply and straightforwardly yourself, when the performance dropped because you had stopped feeling any need to manage the impression you were making, and something relaxed in you that showed in your face and your posture and the quality of your attention. You have watched people respond to that relaxation not with relaxation of their own but with a subtle or sometimes not subtle escalation, an increase in the energy they were bringing, a shift toward the particular behavior of someone who has just felt something they did not expect to feel and is responding to it from a place of agitation rather than understanding. That agitation is information. That escalation is data. That particular discomfort that arises in certain people around you when you are most yourself is not, as you have sometimes thought, evidence that there is something wrong with how you are being. It is evidence that how you are being is touching something in them that they have a strong investment in not touching. Your fullness is a mirror that they cannot fully avoid. And the reflection it shows them is not comfortable for people who have constructed their entire internal identity around managing their emptiness rather than filling it. This is the dynamic underneath most of the significant friction you have encountered in your relationships. Not incompatibility in the ordinary sense. Not different values or conflicting needs or simple misalignment. Something more specific than that. The friction of a person who is full moving through a world that has organized itself around negotiating with hunger, and the particular discomfort that fullness produces in people who have become very practiced at that negotiation and who experience your existence outside of it as something between a rebuke and a threat. There is someone specific who came to mind when you started reading this. Someone in your current life or recently in it whose behavior toward you has had a quality that you could feel but have not been able to fully explain. Something in how they engage with you that carries an edge you cannot quite locate the source of. A pattern in how they respond to you when you are most yourself, when you are clearest, most grounded, most unhesitantly occupying your own space. That suggests the response is to something they are feeling rather than something you are doing. Something that happens in them when they are around you that has less to do with you specifically and more to do with what your presence activates in them. That person is scared of you, not in the way that produces visible fear, not in a way they would ever name or admit to themselves, in the way that produces behavior. In the way that shows up as the specific need to introduce doubt into your certainty, to complicate what you have made simple, to find the crack in what you have resolved, to reopen what you have closed, in the way that produces the particular persistence of someone who needs, on some level that they cannot fully access or explain, for you to be less than what you are. Because if you are what you are, fully, visibly, undeniably, then they are faced with a question they have spent considerable energy avoiding. The question of why they are not in a comparative or competitive sense, in the most interior and personal sense. The question of what it would take to be as settled in themselves as you appear to be settled in yourself, and why, having lived as long as they have lived, they are still negotiating with their own emptiness rather than having filled it. Your fullness asks that question of them without meaning to, without saying a word, simply by being present in the way that you are present, and it is one of the hardest questions a person can face, and most people's first response to hard questions is not to answer them but to remove the thing that is asking. They cannot remove you. That is today's important development. That is why today matters in a way that is not visible from the outside but is completely real. They have tried, not always consciously, not always with deliberate intention, but consistently, to introduce enough friction, enough doubt, enough of the specific kind of pressure that is designed to chip away at the fullness of a person until they begin to run on the same deficit that everyone around them is running on. And they cannot do it. They have tried and they cannot do it, and some part of them, this morning, understood that more clearly than it has understood it before. You are still full, and today, finally, they know they are not going to change that. Here is what your fullness actually is, because it is worth understanding completely. The world will offer you many explanations for it that are smaller than the truth, and you deserve to have the truth. Your fullness is not the absence of struggle. You know this because you have struggled significantly, and the fullness was present through the struggle even when the struggle made it impossible to feel. Your fullness is not the absence of pain, not the absence of the dark periods when everything you thought was solid revealed itself as provisional. You have been through those periods. The fullness was in you through every one of them. Your fullness is the result of choices made at moments when the alternative was available and appealing. The choice, made again and again, not to trade what you actually are for what the moment was offering if you would agree to be slightly less. The choice not to diminish yourself to fit the container other people were comfortable with. The choice not to perform the hunger that the systems around you needed you to have. Those choices were made at cost. You know what they cost because you paid it each time. The relationship that ended because you would not contract to its required size. The opportunity that closed because you would not perform the deference it required. The friendships that faded because the version of you that your fullness requires was not the version those particular people needed you to be. Every time you paid that cost, something in you grew more certain, more settled, more genuinely, durably full, because fullness is not a state you arrive at once and then maintain effortlessly. It is built by the accumulated experience of having been presented with the option to empty yourself for temporary benefit and having chosen otherwise. It is built by the refusal, made consistently enough over enough time, to trade your interior reality for exterior approval. It is built by continuing to be yourself at moments when being yourself was the most expensive available option. That is what they cannot take from you, not because you are rigid or defended or closed, because it is genuinely yours. You built it. It is made of your choices. It lives in the substance of decisions that cannot be unmade and costs that cannot be unpaid. This channel exists for people who have built exactly this and need to be in a space where it is seen and treated as the real and significant thing it is. If that is you, subscribe now. Not as an algorithm transaction, as an act of choosing, again, to be in an environment that reflects your fullness back to you rather than one that requires you to manage it down to a size that other people find comfortable. The fear in the people around you today is not simple. It is not one clean emotion with one clean source. It is layered in the way that significant human emotions are always layered. And it is worth understanding each layer because each layer tells you something different about what you are dealing with and what it means for where you are going. The first layer is the simplest and the most surface. They are afraid of being displaced. This is the most ordinary and most human version of the fear that your fullness creates. If you are what you are, if the thing you carry is as real and as significant as it increasingly cannot be denied that it is, then the people who have been occupying the space that was always meant to be yours are going to have to move. Not violently, not dramatically, not in any way that requires a confrontation or a declaration. Simply through the natural process by which what is genuine eventually occupies the space that has been held by what was performed. through the gravity of real things over time asserting themselves in ways that nothing performed can indefinitely resist. They feel this coming, they have felt it for a while, and the fear of displacement, of having to move from a position that one has built carefully over years, that one has maintained through considerable investment, that one's entire sense of self and standing has become dependent on, is a real and significant fear even when it is not one the person experiencing it has access to clearly. It shows up as the need to find your flaw, to locate the crack, to discover the thing that will explain why you are actually not what you appear to be, not what they cannot help sensing that you are, not the thing that is going to require them to move. The second layer is harder to look at and harder for them to look at. They are afraid of what you represent as a possibility. This is the layer that operates below the displacement anxiety, below the ordinary competitive instinct, down at the level where your existence stops being about you specifically and starts being about the question your existence asks of everyone who encounters it, the question of whether the life they have chosen, the compromises they made, the trades they agreed to, the version of themselves they allowed to become primary, was necessary, whether it was required by reality or only required by their choice of how to respond to reality. Your fullness suggests the second, your continued wholeness, after everything that has been applied to your life that should have emptied you, suggests that the emptying was not inevitable, that the compromise was a choice, not a necessity, that the trade was one option among others, not the only possible response to the conditions both of you faced. And this suggestion, just the suggestion, not even an argument, not even a statement, just the lived evidence of your existence, is one of the most disturbing things a person can encounter, because it raises the question of what might have been possible if they had chosen differently. And that question has no comfortable answer and no resolution and no way of being unmade once it has been genuinely faced. So they work very hard not to face it. And the primary tool for not facing it is to find what is wrong with your fullness, to explain it away, to locate the flaw that makes it not actually fullness, not actually wholeness, not actually the genuine thing but some sophisticated form of the same emptiness everyone is carrying, just more artfully concealed. If they can find that flaw, if they can succeed in the project of proving that you are actually as empty as they are, just better at hiding it, then the question goes away, the evidence is discredited, the disturbing possibility closes. They can return to the story that the trades they made were necessary and the choices they made were the only ones available, and the life they are living is the life that was genuinely possible rather than simply the one they chose. They cannot find the flaw. That is today's development. That is what this morning brought, the understanding, settling into them without being invited and without being welcome, that the flaw they have been looking for is not there, that the fullness is real, that the evidence is genuine, that the question your existence asks of them is not going to be answerable by discrediting you. And the third layer, the deepest and the most significant, they are afraid because your fullness is attractive in a way they cannot control. Other people feel it. Other people are drawn to it in the particular way that human beings are always drawn to what is genuine when they have been living in proximity to what is performed. This draw is happening without your doing anything to make it happen, without strategy, without effort, simply as the natural result of being what you are in spaces operating on what is performed. People are reorienting around you, in the small, steady, undeniable way that orientation happens when something real is present, conversations finding their way to you, trust being extended where it has been withheld from others, people sharing with you what they do not share elsewhere. This reorientation is visible to the people who fear you, and it confirms their fear rather than relieving it. The displacement they are worried about is already occurring. There is something that needs to be said about what today means for you specifically, not in abstract or general terms but in the texture of your actual daily life. Because sometimes the most important developments in a life are entirely invisible from the outside and barely perceptible from the inside. And without someone naming what is happening, a person can move through a genuinely significant day and not understand what they moved through until much later. Today is the day that the weight of their fear became heavier for them than the weight of your hope has been for you. This is a shift in proportion that matters enormously. Because for a long time, for much of the period when you have been carrying what you carry, through conditions that were not designed to support it, the fear on their side was relatively light. It was a background current, a low hum of unease that they could manage through the various mechanisms they used to manage uncomfortable feelings, through keeping busy, through maintaining the narrative that explained you in smaller terms, through the specific kind of not looking that keeps disturbing things from becoming undeniable. But fullness, when it is genuine, is not static. It deepens, it extends, it occupies more of its own reality as time passes and as the choices that produced it continue to be made. Your fullness has been growing, quietly, without announcement, without any particular effort on your part beyond the ongoing choice to remain yourself. It has been growing in the way that real things grow when they are in their right conditions, not through striving, through becoming more fully what they already are. And as it has grown, what it creates in the people around you has grown with it. The unease that was a background hum has become a foreground concern. The low frequency of their fear has been rising. And today it crossed a threshold. Today the weight of it became something they can no longer comfortably manage with the usual mechanisms. Today it became something they have to sit with in a way that is uncomfortable enough to be felt clearly. And that moment, the moment when the fear of others becomes undeniably real to them, is always the turning point in the journey of someone who carries what you carry. Because it is the moment that confirms something that you have been carrying as a private sense without external confirmation for a very long time. It confirms that what you carry is real enough to frighten people who are threatened by the real. It confirms that the fullness is not an impression you have been giving yourself. It confirms that what you have been holding through all the years of holding is exactly what you always sensed it was. The confirmation you have been waiting for is not going to come in the form you expected. It rarely does for people like you. It was not going to come as a public acknowledgement or a formal recognition or a moment when the world around you reorganized visibly and unmistakably around what you are. It was going to come as this, as the morning when the people who have been working to make you doubt yourself wake up having begun, finally, to doubt themselves instead. The morning when the pressure reverses, when the fear moves from being yours to being theirs, when today becomes important not because of anything that happens publicly but because of everything that shifts invisibly. Today is that morning, this is that shift, and you needed to know it. What do you do with this? That is the question that matters now, more than the understanding of what is happening and why. Because understanding is only the beginning and the beginning is only valuable if it points somewhere. What do you do in the life you are actually living? In the relationships you actually have? In the day that is actually in front of you? With the knowledge that the fear you have been navigating around is now more real for them than the doubt you have been carrying is for you. You do not retaliate. This might seem obvious, but it is worth saying clearly because the temptation to use this shift as an opportunity for a reckoning, for the conversation or the confrontation or the moment of clear-eyed addressing of everything that has been created around you, is real and understandable and ultimately not in your interest. Not because the reckoning would be unjust, because it would pull you back into the territory where their fear has the most power over you. The territory of addressing what they have done rather than moving toward what is yours. You do not shrink. This is more important than the first thing. Because the fear of others, when it becomes visible, creates its own particular pressure, a different pressure than the pressure of their attempts to manage you, but a pressure nonetheless, the pressure of not wanting to be the cause of someone's fear, the pressure of the particular tenderness that arises in people who are genuinely full, who are not running on a deficit, and therefore have the capacity for genuine compassion, when they see that their existence is creating distress in someone else. The pressure that says, maybe I should make myself smaller again, maybe I should dim this down to a level that is more comfortable for everyone. Maybe the kindest thing I can do for the people around me who are scared is to stop being the thing that scares them. This pressure is not wisdom. This pressure is the most sophisticated version of the same mechanism that has been working to empty you all along. Do not follow it. The kindest thing you can do for someone who is afraid of your fullness is to remain full, not as a statement, not as a refusal to care about their discomfort, as the ongoing evidence that fullness is possible, as the living demonstration that what they are afraid of is not a threat to them but an invitation, as the steady, patient, completely unaggressive presence of someone who has found their center and will not leave it, which is the only thing that has ever truly shown another person that finding theirs is possible. You expand. This is what today asks of you, not dramatically, not with announcement, not in any way that performs the expansion for an audience, quietly, in the specific ways that have been available to you but that you have been approaching carefully, with the particular tentativeness of someone who has learned that taking up space creates discomfort in the people around them and who has been navigating that discomfort by keeping the taking up of space smaller than it naturally wants to be. The natural size of what you carry is larger than you have been allowing it to be. The natural expression of what you have built is fuller than you have been giving it room to be. The natural reach of your presence, the organic extension of your fullness into the spaces around you, is wider than the careful dimensions you have been maintaining. Today is the day to let it be what it naturally is. Not more than that. Exactly that. The exact, unmanaged, unapologetic size of the actual thing. They are already scared of the managed version. The real thing is not going to increase the fear in any way that matters. What the real thing will do, what it always does, what fullness always does in proximity to people who are ready to be done with their emptiness, is provide the particular relief of encountering something genuine enough to finally stop negotiating with, something real enough to stop performing around. Something full enough to make the managed version of yourself feel, for the first time in a long time, like more work than it is worth. Some of the people around you are going to experience your expansion as that relief. Not the ones who are most invested in your smallness. Those people are going to experience it as the escalation of what they are already afraid of, and they are going to respond accordingly. And that is information and it is data and it will clarify who is in your life for what reason in ways that the ambiguity of the managed version of you has never been able to clarify. But the ones who have been drawn to your presence without fully understanding why, the ones who find themselves in your orbit and feel, without being able to explain it, more themselves, the ones who have been watching the managed version of your fullness and feeling something they cannot name that makes them want to stay close to wherever you are. Those people are going to feel the expansion as arrival, as the thing they have been near finally being what it actually is. Those are your people. Today, you can begin to let them find you completely. This is why today is important in a way that the date on the calendar does not suggest. Not because of anything that happened in the external record, because of everything that is happening in the invisible structure of where you are in relation to where you are going. The fear in the people around you is a milestone marker. It is the sign that what you carry has grown enough that it can no longer be managed by the mechanisms that have been managing it, that you are past the point where their tools work on you. That the period of being held back by what others needed you to be has ended not through conflict but through the simple, undeniable, completely unstoppable process of becoming so fully what you are that the holding back no longer has anything to hold. You are still full, after everything, full, and today, in the quiet of wherever you are sitting, in the ordinary-looking day that is in front of you, in the life that does not yet show what it is in the process of becoming, let yourself feel what that means. Let the confirmation settle. Let the validation of what you have always known about yourself arrive without qualification or diminishment or the practiced tendency to hold what is given to you at arm's length until you have determined whether you are allowed to receive it fully. You are allowed to receive it fully. You have been allowed this whole time. The only thing that has ever been between you and the full reception of what was always yours is the careful smallness you have been practicing. And today that practice ends, not with drama, with the quiet, complete, deeply ordinary decision to stop. They are scared because you are full. Let them be scared. Stay full. The rest of what belongs to you is already coming. Click on the video appearing on your screen right now. What comes next in this series is the piece about what happens in the life of someone who stops managing their fullness and starts living from it completely. The changes are not what most people expect. They are better. Stay in this. Keep going.